if you're human, I mean, you know this voice, right?
Hmm.
That immediate nagging internal narrator that just floods you when you think about taking a chance. The one that freezes you with fear of failure, maybe replays every single mistake you've ever made. And it's always whispering that deep down you're just not good enough.
Mm.
It's that inner critic. We all have it. It can be debilitating. So today we're doing a deep dive into some really practical source material, stuff that gives specific ways to handle this internal judge. And our mission isn't, trying to silence it or destroy it. The research shows that just doesn't work. It's more about changing the relationship, how you can move from being its victim to becoming what the sources call the wise, loving witness.
And what's really striking in the research is how precise this critic is. It's described as the relentless narrator of our perceived flaws, like a tireless judge holding court inside your own head. And its power, really, it's in the language it uses, which is often harsh, absolute, very repetitive.
You mean like those phrases that just get stuck on repeat?
Exactly. Think about, you always mess things up.
Yeah.
Or you'll never succeed. Or everyone else gets this but you. For a lot of people, that voice is so constant. It feels like the truth. Like it's just who they are. But this is so important, and maybe the key thing to grasp right away, it is not the truth. It's just a story, a very well-rehearsed one. And understanding that story means looking at where it actually comes from, which is pretty surprising.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. Because instinctively, you think of the critic as like an enemy, right? This destructive thing inside. But the sources, they present something really different, a kind of paradigm shift. They say the critic is not some evil part of you trying to bring you down. It's actually more like a primitive function, part of the ego, they say.
That's exactly it. And we should probably clarify what ego means here. It's not about arrogance, not in this context. The sources are talking about the ego as this deeper, more primitive management system. Its job is to keep you functioning, keep you safe. And it often does that by using fear. We're making you stick to the rules.
Ah, okay. So fear is the driver.
Fear is the primary motivation. Pure fear, even if it's, completely misguided. The critic's actual function is described as a misguided attempt to protect you.
Mm.
It sort of operates on this subconscious belief, that if it criticizes you first, if it points out all your flaws internally before anyone else can, it can somehow shield you from future judgment, from rejection by others.
Wow. So that connects it to something really deep, doesn't it? Like evolutionary survival stuff.
Absolutely. Its goal is survival through fitting in, keeping you safe within the accepted norms of the tribe. Think about our evolutionary past. Being rejected, being cast out, that could literally mean death.
Yeah.
So the critic thinks that by keeping you small, keeping you quiet, making you comply, it's keeping you secure. There's a great analogy used in the material. It's like a security guard that has become overzealous. So overzealous, it ends up locking you in a cage for your own safety.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So if it's acting like this frightened protector, then fighting it, arguing with it, that just confirms its fears, right? It makes it think the world is dangerous and it needs to shout louder.
Precisely. Fighting it just gives it more strength. So the key implication, the shift, is that the task isn't to win some internal battle. It's to transform the relationship. And you do that through awareness. And maybe most radically, through compassion.
Compassion for the thing that's telling you you're terrible. That's counterintuitive.
It really is.
Yeah.
But if you accept its motive is protection, however clumsy, you stop treating it like it's deliberately malicious. You start seeing it as just a scared part of your system. And that recognition, that alone, starts to shift the power dynamic instantly. Yeah.
Okay. So how do we actually do that in the moment?
Well, the good news is the material we looked at lays out a pretty clear four-step process. It's gentle, and it's designed to shift you from being like a prisoner of this voice to becoming the compassionate leader of your own inner world.
A compassionate leader. I like that. Okay, let's get into the framework. Step 1, you said, is awareness.
Awareness, yeah, it's the absolute foundation. Because if the voice is always there, you stop noticing it. It just blends into reality. So the practice is really about focused self-observation, starting to notice the voice when it speaks up.
What should you be listening for specifically?
Well, pay attention to its tone. Is it sarcastic? Is it really angry? Or does it sound kind of desperate, fearful underneath? And track the actual phrases it uses. You'll notice they're often very repetitive. But the crucial action, the simple action in this first step, is just recognition. When you hear that judgmental thought pop up, don't argue with it. Don't analyze the criticism itself. Just internally, silently label it. Like, that's my inner critic talking. Just that simple label. That act immediately creates a little bit of space, necessary space between you, the observer, and the thought.
Okay, I can see that, but I imagine that's incredibly incredibly hard when you're right in the middle of it. Like you've just messed up, the voice is screaming. How do you actually pause and, put that label on it right then?
Yeah, it definitely takes practice. It's like cultivating mindfulness, almost like trying to catch a ball that's thrown really fast at your head. The sources are clear. This labeling is a skill, a muscle you build. You won't catch it every single time, especially at first, but every time you do manage to notice and label it, you're building that capacity. And that capacity leads right into step 2, which is separation and externalization.
Okay, so creating even more distance, externalizing.
Yeah.
You mean like taking it outside of yourself?
Exactly. The idea is to give the critic a name or even an image, something that makes it feel clearly separate from your core identity.
Right. The sources had some fun examples, like a grumpy gremlin on your shoulder.
Uh-huh.
Or my favorite was a stern judge you call Bartholomew.
Yeah. Follow you.
It sounds a bit silly, maybe. But why does giving it a name like Bartholomew actually work psychologically?
It works because the moment you label it and give it that separate identity, Bartholomew, the gremlin, whatever you engage your prefrontal cortex, that's the rational part of your brain. And doing that helps decrease the grip of the limbic system, which is the emotional fear-driven center. So when the raw thought is, I am so stupid, that feels like an identity statement. It feels like you. But when you reframe it as, Bartholomew is worried again, I hear him, see the difference.
Yeah, it's not me. It's him.
Exactly. You separate the thought from your identity. You realize you are not the thought. You are the one who hears the thought.
Yeah.
That distinction is really the engine for change here.
Okay. So awareness first, then separate it. Give it a name like Bartholomew. What's next?
Well, that separation is vital because it prepares you for step 3, compassionate inquiry. Remember our overzealous security guard analogy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't shoot the guard, right?
Yeah.
You probably ask him what he thinks the threat is.
Right. Okay, so instead of automatically buying into what Bartholomew says or trying to shout him down, which we know just makes him louder, you actually turn towards him, towards that externalized voice, but with gentle curiosity.
Gentle curiosity is the perfect way to put it. You treat Bartholomew like that frightened part we talked about, and you start asking some key internal questions. Not defensive ones like, why are you always picking on me? No. More like compassionate, investigative questions. Things like, what are you so afraid of right now? Or maybe, what are you trying to protect me from in this situation?
And what kind of answers do people usually find?
The material says the answers are often incredibly revealing because beneath the surface criticism, let's say Bartholomew shouting, don't apply for that job, you're not qualified. When you ask what he's afraid of, you usually don't find a detailed critique of your skills. What you find is a deeper fear. Fear of failure, maybe? Fear of being embarrassed publicly, fear of being seen as an imposter, or even that really old primitive fear of abandonment if you fail to meet the tribe's expectations. And understanding that underlying fear, that's what allows you to feel genuine compassion. To treat the critic more like a scared kid who needs reassurance, not an enemy you need to conquer.
Okay, I think for a lot of listeners, myself included maybe, the biggest hurdle is making that shift. How do you pivot from that gut reaction, that anger maybe, at being judged constantly, to actually feeling, let alone offering compassion or even gratitude?
That's a really great point. It's a huge pivot. The sources suggest it's not like flipping a switch, it takes practice.
Yeah.
But the mechanism that makes it possible is powerful. It's about acknowledging the positive intent, even if the action or the words are harmful. Recognizing, okay, Bartholomew, you're trying to protect me, even though you're doing it in a really unhelpful way.
And this leads us right into the final and I think most empowering stage, which is step 4, the conscious response. This is where you deliberately bring in another voice, the voice of your, let's call it higher self or your self-compassion.
And the first part of that response, you mentioned gratitude. Yes, it sounds strange, but you start by genuinely thanking the critic. Thanking Bartholomew for trying to protect you. Again, you're not agreeing with the criticism. You're acknowledging the underlying motive. Thanks for looking out for me.
Okay. And then, after the thank you.
Then, and only then, you offer a new perspective, a more truthful, more constructive one. The material actually gives almost like a script you can practice internally, which is super helpful for changing this old habit. Let's use that example we had. Bartholomew says, don't even try for that promotion, you'll just fail.
Okay, so what's the conscious response?
It would sound something like this internally. Thank you for your concern for my safety, Bartholomew. I get that you're afraid of the risk, afraid I might get embarrassed. However, I am choosing to be courageous right now. This attempt, this promotion, It's an opportunity for me to learn and grow, whatever happens. So your job is done for now. Thanks. I'll take it from here.
I like that. I'll take it from here.
Yeah. What's really crucial about that kind of response is you're not fighting the fear. You're not denying it. You're actually holding it. You're acknowledging it. Like, okay, fear, you can come along for the ride. You're a passenger, but I'm the one driving the car. You're actively choosing your response based on your values, maybe courage, maybe growth, instead of just defaulting to that old script of avoidance.
So putting these 4 steps together, awareness, separation, compassionate inquiry, conscious response, what does this whole process really mean for your everyday life, especially when you're trying to do something ambitious, something scary?
Well, the sources describe it as kind of an alchemy of awareness. That's the phrase used. It fundamentally transforms your whole inner dynamic. You're no longer defined by your self-doubt. Instead, you feel more empowered by your own consciousness, your ability to choose your response. You learn how to hold your fear, how to hold your critic, with patience, with understanding, maybe even eventually with some affection, while still consciously choosing to act from a place of agency, of self-belief. You're essentially, as you said earlier, leading your inner world rather than being constantly bossed around by its most frightened parts.
Leading your inner world, that feels powerful. So for you listening, for your actionable takeaway this week, the advice is to start small. Become a gentle detective of your own inner critic. Don't try to fix everything overnight. Just get to know your Bartholomew a bit better. And we've got 3 simple journaling prompts from the sources to help you start that detective work. First, what are the top 3 things your inner critic tends to say to you? Try to capture the specific phrases. Second, what's its usual tone? Is it mostly sarcastic, angry, fearful, maybe even kind of whiny or mournful? And third, what name or image feels right for your critic? Give it something to help you make that separation we talked about.
And maybe, as a final thought, let's circle back to that core motivation we discussed. If the inner critic, deep down, is really driven by that primitive fear, the fear of being rejected by the tribe, the fear of being seen as unworthy, then maybe ask yourself this as you go about your week. What's the single most courageous act, could be big, could be small, that you could possibly do this week? That would directly challenge Bartholomew's deepest, most fundamental fear of rejection. What would that look like for you?